when an arrogant journalist named Daniel Ford prepared for his flight from Los Angeles to New York, he was feeling particularly confident. Ford had spent years building a reputation as a fearless, no-nonsense columnist who had no qualms about mocking public figures he believed were outdated or irrelevant. His target today? Chuck Norris, the legendary martial artist and actor who had become an icon of strength, discipline, and resilience. In Ford's eyes, Norris was nothing more than an overrated action star whose time had passed. Ford boarded the plane, settling into his first-class seat with an air of superiority. As he looked around, his eyes landed on a familiar face sitting just a few rows away. There, in a simple shirt and jeans, sat Chuck Norris himself. Norris was quietly reading a book, his demeanor calm and unassuming. A smirk spread across Ford's face as he leaned over to the passenger next to him. "Would you look at that?" he whispered, his tone dripping with sarcasm. The great Chuck Norris flying commercial, like the rest of us mere mortals. I guess the tough guy routine doesn't pay as well as it used to. The passenger glanced at Norris and then back at Ford, a look of discomfort on his face. "I think it's pretty cool that he's flying with everyone else," the passenger said softly. "He seems like a humble guy." Ford scoffed. "Humble? Please. Guys like that are all ego. I bet he's just waiting for someone to recognize him so he can soak up the attention." He leaned back in his seat, crossing his arms with a smug expression. "I'll bet he's one of those celebrities who thinks he's better than everyone else just because he can throw a punch on camera." A few minutes later, the flight attendants began their safety demonstration, and Norris listened attentively, his focus on the crew members rather than his surroundings. Ford watched him with growing amusement, convinced that Norris's quiet demeanor was just an act. When the plane took off, Ford decided to make his move. He unbuckled his seatbelt and approached Norris with a forced smile. Well, if it isn't the man, the myth, the legend. Chuck Norris in the flesh." Norris looked up from his book, offering a polite nod. "Hello. I hope you're having a pleasant flight." Ford's tone was dripping with insincerity. "I have to say, I'm a little surprised to see you flying with us regular folks. I thought action stars like you only traveled in private jets." Norris's expression remained calm. "I enjoy being around people, and I don't see myself as any different from anyone else. We're all just trying to get where we're going." Ford chuckled, folding his arms. "Come on, Chuck. You're not going to tell me you're just a regular guy. I mean, you've built an entire career out of being a tough guy. You're practically a walking punchline at this point. You ever get tired of the whole Chuck Norris is invincible joke?" Norris's expression softened, and he closed his book. "You know, I don't mind the jokes. It's all in good fun, and if it brings people a little joy, then I'm all for it. But being tough isn't about winning fights or being invincible. It's about standing up for what you believe in, protecting others, and doing the right thing even when it's not easy." Ford rolled his eyes. "Sounds like the plot of one of your old action movies. You ever think about retiring from the tough guy act and doing something real?" Norris's tone remained patient, but there was an unmistakable note of steel beneath it. "I've spent my life promoting martial arts as a way to build discipline, self-control, and respect for others. I've worked with children, military veterans, and law enforcement officers to promote those values. If that's not real, then I don't know what is." Ford's smirk faded slightly, but he refused to back down. "So you're telling me you're some kind of saint now? Come on, Chuck. You're just another Hollywood actor with a big ego and a bigger bank account." At that moment, a flight attendant approached. "Excuse me, Mr. Norris," she said with a warm smile. "On behalf of the airline, I'd like to thank you for your ongoing support of our veterans program. Your generous donations have helped hundreds of veterans and their families travel to visit loved ones. We're truly grateful for your kindness." Norris nodded graciously. "Thank you. It's an honor to be able to help those who have served our country." The flight attendant turned to Ford, her smile fading slightly. Mr. Norris has been one of our most generous supporters for years. He's also volunteered countless hours at hospitals and veteran support centers. Ford's expression darkened, but he tried to maintain his air of superiority. That's great and all, but let's not pretend he's some kind of hero. He's just an actor. A murmur of disapproval rippled through the nearby passengers, many of whom were now paying close attention to the exchange. One man, a middle-aged veteran, stood up and faced Ford with a hard look. You might want to show a little respect. Chuck Norris has done more for this country and its people than you can even imagine. He's been there for veterans like me when we needed help the most. What have you ever done, other than run your mouth? The tension in the cabin grew thick as the veteran's words hung in the air. Norris stood up, placing a calming hand on the veteran's shoulder. It's all right, he said gently. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. Let's keep this flight peaceful. Ford's confidence began to crumble as he realized he was outnumbered. I didn't mean to start anything. I was just making conversation. Norris's gaze was steady. Respect goes a long way, Daniel. It's easy to judge people from a distance, but you never know the whole story. I've always believed that actions speak louder than words. A hush fell over the cabin as Norris sat back down, reopening his book. The veteran returned to his seat, nodding respectfully at Norris. Ford slinked back to his seat, his earlier arrogance replaced by a look of discomfort. For the rest of the flight, he remained silent, occasionally glancing over at Norris with a mixture of embarrassment and regret. As the plane landed in New York and the passengers began to disembark, Ford approached Norris once more. Look, I misjudged you. I'm sorry for what I said. Norris extended a hand with a genuine smile. Apology accepted. Remember, it's never too late to change your perspective. Ford shook his hand, his demeanor humbled. Thanks, Chuck. I'll try to keep that in mind. As Norris exited the plane, he was greeted with handshakes and words of thanks from several passengers who had witnessed the exchange. He took it all in stride, his presence a quiet reminder that real strength lies in humility, kindness, and respect for others. The story quickly went viral, becoming a powerful example of what it means to lead with grace and dignity. It served as a reminder that actions speak louder than words, and that real heroes often reveal themselves in the simplest acts of compassion and respect. After the flight landed in New York, the story of what had happened aboard the plane began to spread. Passengers, inspired by Chuck Norris's humility and the quiet strength he had shown, shared their experiences on social media. By the time Norris arrived at his hotel, there were already posts going viral, painting a picture of what it truly meant to live by timeless values. One of the passengers, the veteran who had spoken up during the flight, posted a long message that quickly gained traction. Today, I saw a man who could have used his fame and status to put someone in their place. Instead, Chuck Norris handled an arrogant insult with respect and dignity. He didn't need to throw a punch or raise his voice, he simply showed the kind of integrity that makes him a real hero. As a veteran, I can tell you that his quiet support for our community has meant more than words can express. Actions speak louder than any headline, and Chuck Norris's actions speak volumes. Other passengers chimed in, posting photos from the flight, none that directly showed Norris, out of respect, and recounting how he had responded to Ford's mockery. The story took on a life of its own, gaining attention from news outlets and prompting a wave of positive responses. Meanwhile, Daniel Ford sat in his New York hotel room, scrolling through his phone with growing discomfort. He hadn't anticipated the backlash his comments would receive. The smug confidence he had felt before the flight was now replaced by regret. Seeing the outpouring of respect and admiration for Norris made him realize how wrong he had been. Ford decided to post a public apology on his social media accounts. I want to apologize to Chuck Norris and everyone who witnessed my behavior on today's flight. I was out of line and disrespectful, and I regret my comments. Chuck Norris has shown more class, humility, and kindness than I deserved, and I've learned a valuable lesson from this experience. The apology drew mixed reactions. Some accepted it as a genuine gesture of remorse, while others were skeptical, questioning whether Ford was simply trying to save face. However, Chuck Norris himself took notice and responded. His reply was simple and gracious: apology accepted. It takes courage to admit when you're wrong. I hope this experience serves as a reminder to always lead with kindness and respect. In the days that followed, Ford's apology and Norris's response were widely discussed in both traditional media and online forums. The incident sparked a broader conversation about humility, forgiveness, and the importance of standing up for what's right without resorting to hostility. Norris, who had no interest in dwelling on the negative, continued with his plans in New York. He visited a local veterans hospital, spending hours talking with patients, listening to their stories, and offering words of encouragement. The media caught wind of his visit and reported on his ongoing dedication to helping those in need. Chuck Norris doesn't just talk about honor and respect, he lives it, one article read. Whether it's on a first-class flight or in a hospital room, his actions remind us that real strength comes from humility, empathy, and a commitment to doing what's right. As the story gained more attention, Norris was asked about the incident in interviews. He never spoke negatively about Ford, instead choosing to focus on the importance of treating others with kindness. We all have moments when we say or do something we regret. The important thing is to learn from those moments and try to be better moving forward. That's what life is about: learning, growing, and doing our best to help others. The veteran from the flight reached out to Norris personally, inviting him to speak at a community event honoring those who had served. Norris graciously accepted, saying he was always happy to support those who had given so much for their country. At the event, Norris addressed a crowd of veterans, community leaders, and families. He shared his belief that true strength came not from physical prowess, but from living a life of integrity and standing up for what mattered most. We all have a choice every day, he said. We can choose to be negative, to tear others down, or we can choose to build each other up, to lead by example, and to show kindness even when it's not easy. That's the kind of strength that makes a difference. The audience gave him a standing ovation, and many came forward to thank him personally. Among them was the veteran who had defended Norris on the flight. I meant every word I said, the veteran told him. You've done more for us than you'll ever know. Norris shook his hand firmly. It's an honor to support you. I'll always stand with those who stand for this country. As the event concluded, Norris took a moment to reflect. The incident on the plane had turned into something far greater than he had anticipated. It had become a powerful reminder that no matter how much fame or success someone achieved, what truly mattered were the values they lived by: humility, respect, and a willingness to make the world a better place. The story of Chuck Norris's response to the insult on the flight became a symbol of quiet strength and resilience. It was a lesson in the power of leading by example, of choosing kindness over conflict, and of staying true to one's values no matter the circumstances. And for those who had witnessed it firsthand, it was a moment they would never forget.